So today, we are changing things up a bit. My decision was to choose something different, something subtle, something cool and really fun to throw around and drive every day. This is the Nissan 300ZX Fairlady from a suggestion that I received from a friend to talk about this car. And this is the second JDM car and the second car from Nissan and the second Fairlady that I'm reviewing in this channel. If you've been watching my channel for a while now, I first reviewed a JDM before with the Nissan 370Z Nismo a few months ago. I know a lot of people adored this 90s Fairlady from 30 years ago. Yes, 30 years. That's surprising, right? The 300ZX has been out that long and aged so well and looks so attractive. I don't know too much about the 300ZX, but I promise I'll do the best that I can with this car in this video, so bear with me here. I am really not a big fan of the 300ZX or the other Zs either, but that all can change with the all new 400Z that's coming out this summer in August of 2021. But the 300ZX is a really cool car. In fact, out of respect, one of the coolest looking cars ever made from the 90s, and rivaled with some of the best 90s Japanese icons ever, and more. One of them is the Mazda RX-7, Toyota Mark IV Supra, a mid-engine Honda NSX, Mitsubishi 3000 GT, and even an American sports car, the Corvette C4, and several more with great power and performance for what it is. This version of the 300ZX is the faster one with the optional twin turbos, while the other one has the naturally aspirated with the same engine that's slower. The twin turbo one is definitely most desirable, powerful, and back then the 300ZX was a fast car. It beat plenty of competitors in the handling test in 1991. The 300ZX came in second place out of the 10 competitors. So what did it lose to? None other than a Japanese mid-engine Honda NSX, the legendary first Japanese supercar. Nissan were really trying, they weren't playing around. That made the 300ZX an incredible sports car at the time. Nissan first produced the first-gen 300ZX known as the Z31 in sole production in 1984 and was powered by Japan's first ever V6 engine, replacing the inline sixes of the previous Z cars and was a success and became the highest volume Z car Nissan for 5 years, until Nissan set out to become even more competitive in the Z car market with the second-gen 300ZX known as the Z32 kicked in the market. They redesigned it to be faster and feature more advanced technology. The body was wider with a rounder shape and fewer hard edges. The Z32 debuted in 1989 for the 1990 model year with a much smoother taste and originally came with a standard 3-liter naturally aspirated V6 pushing 222 horsepower. The 300ZX was the first Z car to have twin turbos and became available in 1990 for enthusiasts with a big budget to collect a turbo version for a whopping 300 brake horsepower, which is what this is. 300 horses sounded like a strong number at the time because the 300ZX Turbo was actually the most powerful and the first JDM car ever to reach 300 horsepower than all the other sexy Japanese cars. More powerful than the C4 ever was, that GM had to match the Corvette 300 horsepower with the LT1 V8 in order to pull up with the 300ZX. Both cars drove equally good against each other, but the 300ZX roughly defeats the Corvette, sweeping the victory for top speed, cool styling, better handling, wide quality with the stiffer springs and volume. Nissan produced over 18,000 Z32 twin turbos for the American market between 1990 and 1996, and more than 2/3 of that total was sold in 1990 through 1991. In spite of the fact that the 300ZX commenced production run in Japan from 1989 until the new millennium in 2000, with some variation changes, and over 164,000 units were produced worldwide. The starting price for the twin turbo was $33,000, which was cheap for anyone who dreamed looking to buy this car during high school at the time or sometime in the future. The 300ZX had a couple different variations. The coolest one was the 300ZX Targa Top and the beautiful convertible. To some Z fans, both look even cooler and prefer those over the regular hard top as the turbo or non-turbo version of the 300ZX. The 300ZX styling is so clean and has beautiful smooth round edges with the red shaped style. It's got the headlights that Lamborghini shares them from Nissan for the last iteration of the Diablo in the late 90s. The classic rims with 5 spokes suits the side profile with the brake calipers that you can see through. The rear end of the car looks so fine and clean. The taillights are nice with the 300ZX label in the middle, and you got the twin turbo labeled if you got the twin turbo version of this car. And quad exhaust is under the bumper. The mounted spoiler completes the look for this model as well. However, in my opinion, the 300ZX looks slightly fitter without the spoiler for better rear visibility and a little bit more cleaner. With or without the spoiler doesn't negatively impact the look of the car. Underneath the hood, the 3-liter twin turbocharged V6 engine is mounted behind the front axle. So what does that mean? Considering called a front-mid engine, Nissan did that to improve the weight distribution. As a sports car, the 300ZX is meant to feel fast with light steering when turning in with the help equipped with 4-wheel drive system. The same engine that's in this 300ZX is from the last gen with overhead camshaft and variable valve timing making 222 horsepower. But because this version has the parallel twin turbochargers with twin intercoolers, the engine pushes from 222 to 300 horsepower and has 283 pound-feet of torque, reaching 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5 seconds, and can reach top speed over 155 miles per hour while revs up to 6,400 RPMs. One of the quickest cars at the time for the 90s. Now let's have a look inside the interior of this car. Everything in this car is analog and really basic. It lacks modern technology in today's standards, but this is a 90s car that doesn't require high-end luxury. Basic luxury. Everything is simple. The majority of the interior has soft touch materials. The 300ZX has only 2 seats, while the support bucket seats are standard as cloth, which are very supportive and comfortable, and you can fold both seats down to access storage very easily. The 300ZX has a 4-meter gauge cluster, meaning temperature on the left, speedometer and RPMs, and a fuel gauge. There are control buttons for the car lights and cruise control near at your fingertips. The steering wheel has leather wrapped with a 4-spoke design, very clean with 2 horn buttons on each end. Both bezels and opposite ends of the steering wheel with those buttons are towards the driver's face, meaning that it's a lot easier. The climate controls, the cruise control, the hazard lights, and the wiper controls are all there in front of you. That's a good design concept if you ask me for a 90s Asian sports car. The center console is very plastic with the center storage available, car mirror buttons, parking brake, and a 5-speed manual stick shift in this version. You can get the 300ZX in 2 different gearboxes with 4-speed auto or 5-speed manual. It does have stereo and radio stuff too in the center. The interior and the exterior of the car is very roomy. This 300ZX is considered a hatchback, meaning when a driver can turn around and reach into the back trunk very easily. The rear window connects from the roof down to the end of the trunk. The trunk is very massive for practicality to store several items containing 23.7 cubic feet of cargo. That is huge, so much more room than the 350Z and the 370Z. However, the 4-seat version of this car means extra passengers, but loses about half of the storage when the rear seats are occupied. That's about 11.5 cubic feet of cargo if you chose the 4-seat version of this 300ZX. Just expect to lose half of the trunk space. Now let's get behind the wheel of the 300ZX. My thoughts for the Z32 is the attractive styling, a lot of good power and great handling for an average driver from the twin turbo version. The twin turbo is always worth it. The 300ZX is an amazing sports car and a polarizing machine. 300 horses from the twin turbo V6 was a big number at the time. With the manual stick, it's a driver's car that requires skill, and after a while driving the car on a daily basis, the fun experience really does increase and gets really easy and enjoyable. The Z32 with the turbo or naturally aspirated is very reliable. With proper care, the 300ZX can go about 300,000 miles depending on the model year, depending on the condition, and the mileage. However, some 300ZXs are prone to suffer reliability issues and can become a pain to work on, but not too expensive to maintain. Maybe that explains why I don't see the 300ZXs that often on the streets. I could be wrong, but this 300ZX is a great bargain to buy. Just gotta find one that's in good shape if you do desire. For me, I go with Toyota. Now you may think that we are done with this car review, but sometimes you can't just mention a street car without the race car, the 300ZX. Nismo, which is the Nissan Motorsport company, built the 300ZX IMSA GTO race car in 1989 to compete in the IMSA GTO Championship. 1989 was a great year for Nissan. It was a year that they won at the 12 Hours of Sebring 2 class championships in IMSA and Japanese Touring Championship. Clayton Cunningham Racing had 7 factory-supported Nissan 300ZX race cars built to compete in IMSA Racing Series. Entering the 90s, the 300ZX proved itself to a success as it won the Manufacturers and Drivers Championship in 1992 and 1994. Nissan also created the Racing Le Mans version of the 300ZX with the extra lights in the front. This was able to finish and won at the 1994 24 Hours of Le Mans in its class, and also won the 24 Hours of Daytona. The race car was also a legend, just like the road car, scoring the overall wins and having several top 5 finishes races from 1989 to 1995. This vintage racer cuts an impressive figure and has never been crashed and never fully restored. The GTO 300ZX has the same modified twin-turbo V6, just like the road car, pushing 750 horsepower, 680 pound-feet of torque, and a 5-speed racing gearbox, sporting an iconic red, blue, and white racing livery with a much wider body, BBS rims, and a mounted rear wing. Nissan did a great job with the history of the road car 300ZX and the racing 300ZX. Imagine both the road and the legendary race car being legendary in their own division. Even though I'm not a big fan of the 300ZX, as I said before in the video, it's a great Z sports car on a road and on a track, and for driving every day. And now, that is the end car review of the Nissan 300ZX Fairlady Z. And I hope you guys really did enjoy this video. If so, do not forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time for some more upcoming car reviews. And always more than welcome to give me any car suggestions. Let's hop into the car and put the keys into the ignition of the regular 300ZX Turbo and start the engine. And then test drive the IMSA GTO racing version at Daytona International Speedway. Make sure to adjust your headphone volume for both car sounds. Peace out.